Oh, I've got an overview, and you guys get to give fabulous input.
I love it.
Because really, I think that's where the strength of these Zooms are, really in being able to put all of our brains and our hearts together and to glean from one another. And that's something that I really love. So this was a really great chapter. It's kind of like the culminating effect of kind of starting the whole launch for what the book is about. And I love the way that he kind of opened it. And he said, have you ever noticed that a single idea can change the entire course of your life? And I feel like that is a lot of what is going on in this book. It's kind of upending a lot of our thinking, maybe the way that we've done things in the past. And so the idea is that, we may have been involved in a variety of things in our past. Noah certainly was. But then he got exposed to something else that really triggered a whole new thought and perspective. And in his case, it was going to a seminar about people with eating disorders. And I thought that there was a lot that we can really glean from that, because a lot of times when you look at eating disorders, you think, oh, food is the culprit. Food was really not the culprit. It was really a very deep sense of a low self-esteem. And a lot of it was in relation to body image. He brought up the idea that women are very connected to their body image and the physical side of who we are. And sometimes when we have low self-esteem, it's really a matter of kind of attacking that aspect of it. And he said that in the study of the women with the eating disorders, it said that generally they were young women who were creative, talented, motivated, sensitive to the needs of others, often putting those needs and feelings above their own. They were smart, even overachievers. So why would they starve themselves or binge and purge? And I think, we all have a lot of those traits ourselves. But when our self-esteem is really low or we have a very negative self-image, those things get buried. And so we're not really able to clearly see them. So although the eating disorder was wrapped up in their physical sense of value, it really was about something else. It was about an overall sense of self-esteem. And, we may not be starving ourselves physically, but we could be starving ourselves in some other area. So I felt that he really challenged and said, are we just accepting the crumbs of life? Are we kind of just trying to grasp at any little thing we can find, and therefore really miss a lot of the value that we have to offer? And a lot of the times that is projected through helping other people. I've been listening to a lot of different YouTube videos from some of the leaders that talk about how we give our hearts to other people. We really pour ourselves into other people. You work at supporting your team to the neglect of yourself. And I think that part of that is what this was talking about. And it's interesting because he was talking about traditionally men and women have kind of different things that contribute to low self-esteem. Women, traditionally, it's the physical thing. Men was more traditionally the material area, where they have to be productive, where they have to, go get the bacon, where they had to do all these things. Yet now, with so many women out in the workforce, we've got both of those things. And if we have a sense of low self-esteem, it makes it a lot harder for us to really go after the things that we're hungering for. And we tend to starve ourselves of the success that is out there. Let me look here. So he kind of calls that condition success anorexia. So, I can relate to both the starvation part of that and the binge and purge. There's some times where we just stuff ourselves with all sorts of stuff and then we get rid of it and never actually use it to our benefit. So the idea of the success anorexia is when we already have a really deeply negative self-belief, which he calls the head trash. And we're unconsciously developing a pattern of behavior that is actually marked by pushing away success. So we have that negative belief about ourselves that disables us from actually being able to be successful. And I think that is the thing that really triggered this whole concept of the secret code of success. And he said that is actually where this concept was born, was in understanding it's not, what we later on will hear more about the 10% of the iceberg. It's really the 90%, which is that negative belief or that negative view of ourselves. That is really what drives us. And if we can address that and really change that, it's going to greatly affect the way that we look at success and really our ability to become more successful. So he talks about the two truths. That is that everyone has potential. We all are kind of aware of that, and no one is actually living up to it. And I'm sure that probably all of us are there to that some extent, that we have some success that we've been able to achieve, but there is a lot more that we've actually not been able to achieve yet. So he kind of introduces the idea of the 3%ers in life. Those are the people that he says live really wealthy, happy, full of joy, peace, health, loving relationships. These people are pretty rare to have all of those qualities about them. That's why they're called the 3%. And then there's the rest of us that are basically just trying to get by. So what he is trying to teach us in this, the secret code of success, is how to learn from the 3%ers. Part of the issue is that they have this naturally. That's why they're kind of the minority. They can achieve those things naturally, whereas the vast majority of us don't. We've got that head trash going on. We've got a lot of stuff going on that kind of prevents us from being able to be successful. So there are 4 levels of competency that you kind of have to progress through. And, we can be in different stages. We can have little bits and pieces of all the different stages. But the first one is the unconscious incompetence, and that's what you don't know what you don't know. You can't change anything. You can't do anything if you don't know how to do it. The next level is the conscious incompetence, when you know what you don't know. And I know for myself, that's kind of where I am at. I'm beginning to have this awakening of understanding in some of these areas, and I'm beginning to understand what it is, kind of what I know, but what it is more that I don't know. The third one is you know that you know, so you start establishing that knowledge and that growth that you're experiencing. And then the fourth one is that you do it without conscious thought. And so this is kind of where we have to really work on it, because it has to do with not only learning, but that's where the repetition, where we have to keep practicing and practicing what we've learned and what we now know, so that at some point down the road, it's going to be where it's unconscious. Let me look here. I'm talking ahead of myself, so I have to catch up. I have to catch up with my notes. So he also mentioned that the secret code of success is actually a way of life that involves both being and doing. The being part is just discovering who we are. So, that head trash is always telling us who we're not. So for a lot of us, it's about having to really discover who we are. And then the doing part is really acting in accordance with who we really are. And I think for, those of us that are probably down the road a little bit more in the book, and you're learning about the AfFORMations and how to really change what goes on in our head and in our subconscious, reframing that, and then practicing that over and over again. I know I've gotten a little crazy with doing that. At work, I've kind of known now for reframing and rephrasing. So when people come to me with a negative, I'll tweak it around and speak it back to them in the form of a question, and they go, oh. So I've been introducing that concept, I think, to so many people But it is something that I think we're going to be doing more and more. And as we do that, that is how we start to repattern ourselves. You begin, I love that idea of the affirmations where you're reframing something that you want and making your brain work to find the answers. So we're not looking outside of ourselves to find the answers. We're really digging deep within ourselves to find the answers. And I think a lot of the times we're kind of shocked that they're there because we never thought they were. So we're kind of reaffirming ourselves as we, re-speak the affirmations and find the answers. Okay, so some of the other questions. Why should I follow the code? I mean, what's the big deal with the code? The first thing is that we're going to get rid of the head trash that's holding us back. So a lot of us in that place where we're uncovering what is going on in our subconscious and getting rid of it. We're identifying it, we're changing it, and we're getting rid of it. The second one is we will allow ourselves to make more money. That can't be bad. As we deal with that stuff, we begin to realize we're more competent, we're more able, we can accomplish things that we didn't think we could before. And this is really specifically in our areas where we're wanting to grow our businesses. Number 3 is our sales and recruiting efforts will improve. Number 4 is we will enjoy improved relationships with ourselves and others. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of the things I've been learning here are applicable to absolutely every aspect of life, every relationship in life, whether it be, personal, work, business, just friends, whatever. It just benefits everything. Number 5 is our self-confidence will increase naturally because we're going to be able to be aware of the fact that we're much more competent than we thought we were. 6 is we'll experience enhanced feelings of happiness, connection, joy, enthusiasm, and love. Also awesome. And then number 7 is we'll begin to know and live our purpose on earth. And I think that is a lot of what we're finding. We can have a dream and we can be working towards that. We get frustrated along the way. And I think once we find our purpose and really equip ourselves to be able to live that, that's where I think a lot of those great feelings come in. So just back to the head trash, is that we're going to be getting rid of that. And a lot of the times that is what creates the self-sabotage or the fear of success. And that's what gets our foot on the brake. It's the stuff that's going on inside where we want to move forward and our head's going, what are you talking about? You can't do that. You've never done that before. And so we end up putting the brake on. So this is going to help us to stop doing that and to be able to look forward more. And it says that self-destructive behaviors that hold us back from success are behaviors. So a behavior is something I do that's caused by something else. So we're at the place where we're digging down to try to understand more about what creates those behaviors in us. And the true cause of all human behavior is basically based on our why to or our why not to. So if our negative behaviors are based on one, then our positive behaviors that we're going to do moving forward are going to be based on our why to's as opposed to, and really what our dreams are, why we want to do what we want to do. So that's what's going to help change the behavior. So he emphasizes the fact that we need to take action. So we can't just learn something and let it sit inside our head. We have to actually do something about it. And this is the last chapter before we're going to have to really dig in and start working. A lot of action steps, a lot of homework type of things. So gearing up for action to really do something in relation to what we've been learning is really important. And then it just goes on to talking about the 7 pyramids. I don't want to talk a lot about those because we'll be moving into those in the next weeks. Hold on, where did I find that? So the first one, again, is the affirmations. We've already kind of dug into that, but we'll be growing more in that. The second one is the loving mirrors and safe havens, and that's how to gain unconditional support in life, career, and relationships. And this is the one that the 3%ers typically do. unconsciously that we're really going to have to learn to do to reach our full potential. The third one is systems of support, and that's in relation to business and to create the maximum success with minimum efforts. The fourth one is the goal-free zones, and that is how to fit goals into our life. So one of those is how to unplug and re-energize and revitalize ourselves daily. And the other one is goal replacement surgery, which he says is to discover if my stated goals are really mine or someone else's that I've internalized. And I think that is something for me, I know that has been a really big deal, is I have always had a really hard time setting goals. And so I've kind of taken on other people's without internalizing myself, which is why I never seem to accomplish them. And so really uprooting that and doing that differently is going to be really helpful as well. The fifth one is why we are trying to protect, punish, or please. This is a really big one. That one holds us back from our freedom. Number 6 is find our no, especially if you tend to be a people pleaser. And, a lot of us, we want to help people. We want to really support people. But there are times when we have to draw boundaries and say no. And then the 7th one is to find our because, which is really our mission and our purpose. Then when we find that, we're going to know what our purpose is, and we're going to have the tools to make life better for ourselves and for other people. So that's it, peeps. I would love to hear what you guys gleaned from this chapter.
Amy, I wonder if you can go kind of back through your outline and think of questions you could ask with each section.
Okay.
Some input a little.
Okay.
I gotta ask, while Amy's doing that, was this the chapter where they were saying something like the 3%ers struggle with teaching this, this whole thing because it comes naturally to them? So the rest of us, we're really benefiting from this book. Was this the chapter that it talked about that? Because that was really eye-opening for me.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes, I think that was the point he was making with a lot of the self-help books. A lot of those are written by part of the 3%ers. They're written by people who naturally are able. It's like, why can't you guys get this? And it's because they don't struggle. They don't have that big 90% under there. It comes more naturally to them and more easily. So they're able to teach it, but not in a way that those of us who are not part of the 3%ers can really understand and glean from.
Yes, and I think that's what's making this book so special for really all of us, is that he's speaking directly to us and really digging deep in, some of our struggles and helping us overcome those. So, yeah.
Let's go. You're going to be in
So
trouble.
did you guys get the part
done.
of him talking about the anorexic and bulimic people?
Yes.
How you, and I think I can relate to this myself, how when you struggle with something, you look to that thing. If you have an eating disorder, you look to food and you think, well, that's got to be the culprit because it's in relation to food. And it turns out that is actually not the case. You tend to look at people who struggle with things like that as being weak or they're deficient or whatever. But he was saying that actually some of these people are incredibly creative, caring, helping, smart, like anything. They were straight A students. And yet there was something that happened, as part of their life that created this incredible negative self-image. And a lot of times it doesn't have anything to do with food. And I think, if you can kind of translate that into other areas that we may struggle with, to look to a different area of life as to where the negative self-image came, that will help us uncover the issue to be able to really address it, I think, and find freedom in that area.
Yes.
So I had a thought.
One thing that stood out to me was when he was talking about taking a shower in the morning. You don't have to think about it. You just do it. And I think that's what this whole process is doing, is we've got to retrain our brains so that we just automatically do things. He was talking about when you learn to drive a car, when you're a kid, you don't need to learn how because your parents get you where you're going. And then as you get older and you've been driving for a while, then it just comes natural and you don't have to think about how to shift the gear or whatever. You just do it. And so that's what we've got to do with our brains right now, is to retrain them to do these steps, this success, and be able to just do it.
Right. And the fact that it takes repetition and time. I think, we tend to be hard on ourselves and we think, well, now that I understand that, it should all be in place. And it's not the case. We have to be more conscious about repeating it over and over and over and over. Just like you learn anything that you do, from walking to driving a car to whatever, it takes repetition, practice, and only then does it become something that we automatically do.
What I love most about that is, though, you just said, like, we want this to be unconscious. We want to naturally do it. But I love the chapter when you guys talked about why should we follow this book. I mean, he wrote 7 reasons why we should follow this book. And all those reasons are like things that we would like jump for joy and read thousands and thousands of books if they had the answers to all these, like how to make more money, how to get rid of the head trash, like all that list. It's just amazing that this whole book, I mean, it's like, 200 pages, is supposed to help us with every one of those things that we've always dreamed of in our entire life and that we've been working for forever and ever. And the answers are supposed to be in this book. I just think that's like the most amazing thing ever. And I love how Larry was talking about how we just have to do it, but finding those unconscious reasons why we're not doing it, and then implementing what he's teaching us and doing it and actually doing it. Because I don't know about you guys, but I started reading ahead and I still haven't done anything. I just read the book, and that's not going to be enough either. So anyways, that's why I like these weeks. We have a whole week to like work on it. I think it's going to be good for us.
Well, that's right. And I think that's the difference between superimposing something on your life and digging deep and pulling it out and integrating it into your life. I think, a lot of the reading, and I can relate to that, Janelle, because I tend to read while I'm on the treadmill in the morning where I can't take notes. And it's like, so I have to read it like 10 times and then finally sit down and start working on it. But you're right. And he says that very clearly, that if we do not read and do the work, you're not going to integrate it. It's still going to remain in that superimposed, superficial knowledge, as opposed to really integrating it and pulling from within yourself to really deeply integrate the truths that he's sharing.
And that's why I recommend everyone to seriously get a journal for this book, because if you don't, you're not going to do it. And if you don't have like a hard copy of the book, it's going to be pretty hard to implement some of those things, because they have affirmations after each chapter that you can actually immediately start applying to your life, and you don't even have to think of them. Because I always feel like that's what I have the hardest time doing, is actually figuring out what to write down, like digging deep and actually like coming to terms with some of these issues that I might have. I don't want to like maybe admit them, I guess I'm trying to say, but having a journal where you can privately have it and write down like your deepest, darkest things that you're struggling with, I think would be super, super beneficial.
That was my biggest takeaway, is actually putting all of this stuff into action. Because I've read like a jillion self-help books, but to actually do what he says and the exercises, and I've done a lot of them already. I've got the Think Up app and doing the affirmations and whatnot, but it's hard to do all of those at the same time. So I'm glad we're rereading this book again so that I can get better at implementing those ones that I wasn't so good at the first time. So it's been awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm reading the book the second time through. The first time I was like Janelle, I listened to the whole thing, and I did like think up some affirmations in my head, and I was kind of like saying them to myself, out loud every day, but the second time through, I'm reading it rather than listening, and I am actually filling out the exercises, and that's when it's so much more powerful. So make sure you guys are writing things down. So important.
And I think we need to give ourselves space and some time as well, because some of those questions are hard questions. Some of the activities they're doing are really difficult things to identify and think through, let alone finding the answers to. So I think we can kind of do layers. I know that this book is something I'm going to be reading multiple times over. And I know that as life goes on and as we grow, we're going to be growing in different areas on different levels. And I think to be able to, some of them are going to be a little bit easier. Others of them are going to take a lot more work, really, to uncover what's going on inside of us. And to be able to give ourselves time and space and some grace as we go through that process, I think will help us kind of accept the growth that's coming where we are now, and to realize that there's just more that we can tap into down the road as well.
And to add to that, we change all the time. I mean, we have our core beliefs and all that stuff, but through the years, we're going to change. This is going to be a book that you're going to want to constantly implement, and there's going to be new things that come up, things that change, things that happen in your life, where these head trashes are going to constantly be in our life, and it's going to be something that we're going to have to get throughout in different stages of our lives. So this book is going to be something we can implement throughout our whole entire life. It's going to be kind of a huge blessing, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we've got a few more minutes. Any last thoughts before we close it out?
Well, I think what I thought of when I was reading about driving the car is it made me think of any job we've ever had. It always seems really overwhelming. Maybe the first week or so, you have all this training to do, and it seems like it's really difficult. And then after a while, you become good at your job, you know what you're doing, and it becomes second nature. So I think just like anything, if we can really do the work, I think that we can make it second nature for us to be doing these things.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. It takes practice for sure.
Mm.
Okay. Any last thoughts?
I thought Amy did wonderful.
Thanks.
Good. Great review, Amy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you want to ask someone to lead our conversation tomorrow? Getting into chapter 4. This one has
You mean next week?
Yeah. What did I say?
Tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Let's wait till
Overachiever.
Yes. Right.
Okay, so I'm going to first ask, does anybody volunteer? All right, Lori, you're it.
Yay! Lori,
Yeah, you. Yeah.
Like me?
Yeah.
Would
So
you
you get week 4.
Lori, would you have the honor? Hey, Nikki, get down. Of leading
Yeah,
us?
I had a feel. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
Good.
Oh, then it's right.
I would be honored, but that's a really long chapter, so I'll need some help. So I'll do my best.
Well, lots of questions and lots of group interaction. That's okay.
I'll double check on the calendar, but I think we're good next Monday at 8 o'clock for my time.
Right.
Okay, sounds good.
Hey, everyone have a great week. Love you, girls.
Righty,
Bye,
bye.
guys.